On this episode of the Make Ideas Reality podcast, you're a bit of a perfectionist. Would you call yourself a perfectionist?
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%. There's not one thing I make where I'm not going, this could be better. Like, this is what really showed me that I could make a bike my own. And like that cycling could be a way of expressing myself through the type of bike I'm riding, through the type of bike I'm building, and through the way I am moving on my bike. And one day I just took a wrench and an old butter knife and like silver brazed both of them together, and I posted a picture. And the company that made the wrench, they reacted to it.
Hello and welcome to Make Ideas Reality, the podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to everyday creative heroes making their ideas reality that wouldn't necessarily get their story heard. I hope to inspire you with their stories, give you courage to leave your comfort zone, think big, and be the badass creator you are meant to be. I'm Justin White, aka the Garage Avenger. Let's do this! Hello and welcome to the Make Ideas Reality podcast. Today's guest is a wolf dressed in sheep's clothing who enjoys the German way of thinking. Perfection in its simplest form, function and beauty that challenges the norm. Welcome to the show, Hannes Hagen, known as Unbehagen _ on Instagram. Now, you just told me that Unbehagen actually means something in German, and I thought maybe we'd just start with that because I found that interesting.
Yeah, I came up with it because it's a joke with my last name, and Unbehagen means feeling uncomfortable in German with the situation.
Is that a bit of a theme for you? Do you feel like maybe you're like an imposter in some ways?
I feel uncomfortable with a lot of things, but mainly with how society wants me to be. So I thought this is a well-fitting name to like do my social media stuff.
I love it, because that's often what we all feel is like we don't quite fit, the social norms. I think it's really kind of interesting. I like it. Now, you and I met at Makers Central in 2019 it was. Now, for you guys who haven't been to an event like Makers Central, there's Maker Fair Hanover, there's Workbench Con, there's a whole heap of events that around the world. Now, I would suggest if you want to meet like-minded people, those events are really, really important, because basically if I hadn't been to Maker Central, I wouldn't have started this podcast because I wouldn't have met all these amazing people. So, Hannes, I remember you because you were walking around with this brake disc. Was it like a heat, pot holder or something? Or was it like
trivet.
What was it?
It's called a trivet. You put it under a hot pot, I guess. Maybe it was these things I brought with me because I gave a few of them away.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, and I just remember looking at them and just remember looking at your welding on it, and it was really quite good. And I was kind of like envious because I can't imagine that is super easy to weld, But for me anyway, let's just say that.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
But I just love to give stuff away. So usually I bring something when I go to meet makers or like-minded people.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something I made, or it's just cookies I baked the night before or something.
Hey, where was my cookies? I didn't get any cookies. This is ridiculous. We're not friends anymore. I'm sorry. Podcast over. No, but I actually no talking about cooking, because I've been watching you recently making all these utensils, kitchen utensils and stuff like that. And again, I was sort of like mesmerized a little bit about how they kind of look like they were supposed to be. You can see it was welded on, but at the same time, like if you put like a zinc coating on that or whatever after you've done it, people would just think it was actually meant to be like that. And I thought the simplicity, the beauty of it was amazing. And then Kel, which I had on a couple of weeks back, he was talking about you, and I thought, "Well, I better look into Hannes and see what he's doing." So I was flicking through your Instagram page, and then I see a couple of photos of a Lancia Delta. For those people who don't know what a Lancia Delta is, it's one of the most iconic rally cars of all time. Um, Everyone's heard of the Audi Quattro, but this was around the same time, the same era, and they were absolute monsters. And they're really amazing to look at. And when you see one on the street, you've just seen a Lancia Delta. Really impressive cars. And so I thought, what? Hannes is into rally cars? Sold. He's on my show. let's let's talk
That was
about
easy.
yeah, let's talk about rally cars. But I think before we talk about rally cars and bore everyone, why don't we talk a little bit about your journey and how you got into working with your hands and making cool stuff?
Yeah, sure. I grew up basically in the middle of Germany. My parents had a big garden. They were teachers, and yeah, my sister and my brother and I, we were just basically roaming around, doing what we liked, like digging holes, building huts, playing Stone Age, and we always had something to do. And we always worked with our hands. And I really enjoyed that. I really did. But like after primary school, it got a little bit lost somewhere along the way, and I got, I don't know, on the academic path, because this is what you do in Germany when your parents are academics. You are born to be an academic too. So yeah, but I always had this this urge to make things to work with my hands, and somehow after university I came back to it, and I've never regretted it to like take the long way round to my real passion.
And what was your real passion? What did you find? How did you get to where you are now?
I've always been looking for this one thing, for a thing where I could work with my hands and like channel all my passions into it, like precision, simplicity, perfection. And the bike, I've always ridden bikes, and to make your own at some point becomes the ultimate dream of every cyclist, because it's the purest form, I guess, to ride a bike, like a bike you built with your own hands. And this is what I set out to do. Like after university, I was unsure. Like after I graduated, I have a master's degree, so the easiest way would have been to just get into the job I just got a degree for. But I decided to take my time and decided to go and take some classes in frame building. So I went to England, to Frome in Somerset, to the Bicycle Academy, and started making my own frame in a week. And this was a moment in my life I was on, I don't know, every drug my brain can produce for 6 days straight. it was wonderful. There were people really like-minded people and experts. They could tell me how to do it, and I could choose what type of bike I wanted to build. And yeah, so learned how to brace and learned how to miter tubes and learned these little tricks, how to brace smaller things, or to like have your tubes align the right way, and to use a frame jig, and just work with your hands and like do it in a precise way. And if you do it right, you have a frame that once it's built to a full functioning bicycle, you can ride it and enjoy it. And I still ride this regularly, and it's still my favorite bike.
Well, it's a fixed gear bike, right? This type of
No, it's not. It's not. This was a little bit earlier when I converted my first road bike I ever got to a fixed gear bike. This is what really showed me that I could make a bike my own, and that cycling could be a way of expressing myself through the type of bike I'm riding, through the type of bike I'm building, and through the way I am moving on my bike. This is what started the bike thing, and the making things thing. This is what started at the frame building class, because sometimes you have these moments, these situations that show you there's more, there's way more. And this week showed me there's way more. I knew that I wanted to make bikes, or like I wanted to do this job, but also it showed me that there are so many more things that I want to build, and that this week showed me I'm able to do it. Maybe not right now, but I can acquire the skills to do so.
Yeah, I mean, each step, you take brings you closer to that, right? Every time you do a new project, you learn something new, and you take it further. I remember when I was a young teenager, not that young, I think I was about 16 or 17. I built this like lowrider bike. I thought it was so cool. I was the biggest dork ever. But I also I just remember enjoying that. Like that was my thing. I went on the weekends, I would modify it a different way. And then on Monday I'd ride it to school thinking I was like this cool kid on this dope bike, with my new mod, and I did all sorts of things. I, spun aluminium, I bent the forks, I, put suspension in, I made big sissy bars and ape hangers and, all this dumb stuff on it. But, it was enjoyable for me. And I had no tools, I had nothing. I just did everything I could with what I had. And that was probably my most enjoyable time before all the stresses of life and everything, catch up with you. You go home on the Friday with plans just to muck around in the garage. I think it was great. So I want to touch a little bit on education, because I mean, you talked about going to do a degree, and your degree was in urban design, was that right?
Correct.
Yeah. And so the school system had thrown you in, its jaws, and you went through the machine and came out the other side, realizing that wasn't quite what you wanted. And I find that very interesting, because a lot of us are like this. We've talked about this before on the show. The education system doesn't fit everyone. What was your experience with the German education system? Because I know from the little I know, the German people are very safety orientated. They like to do everything kind of like the non-risk way. You get the papers, you do everything by the book, and then everything is going to be okay on the other side. And you kind of, at the end of your degree, not taking the job. How was that for you?
Yeah, I've thought that a lot of times in the last years, because some people want to make you believe that it's not only strange, but a waste of talent in some way if you don't do what you learned. Because Germans tend to think that if you have learned one thing or studied one thing, this is your job. And you don't stray away, like, far from it. This is what Germans think. But yeah, starting with school was a very unpleasant time for me. German school, if you are smart, or if they consider you smart, you graduate high school, you go to university, and you become an academic with a job at the desk. This is how you do it. There's no form of education for someone who's able to use his mind as well as his hands. There's only like the blue collar jobs with like full on metal work, and the academics, the designers, the engineers sitting in front of their computer. There's no real form of mixing the two. There are some forms, but they are very, very engineer related, and this is not the direction I wanted to go. I always feel creative. I liked poetry, I liked writing, I liked photography, but I never liked school, because school always wanted me to like write a text about what this poet wanted to tell us with his poetry. I wanted to like be creative myself, and this is something I only discovered in the years after school. Like when I was in school, I could name that I feel uncomfortable in this situation, but I couldn't really name what it was at the time. So I wanted to be creative, to be more free, and not, do what they asked me to, like just to get grades. I didn't understand why this is the purpose of going to school. I wanted to learn, but I didn't want to, do all the stuff related to school, what you do, like taking tests, whatever, going there every day. I wanted to be free, basically. And then I somehow graduated high school, and then I had no choice, basically, than to go to university. I tried to apply for some jobs or some education that was not university related, like some industrial mechanical stuff. But I didn't get along with the people really well. So I decided, let's go to university. My parents wanted to pay for it, and I had a lot of free time for cycling, for doing my own thing, meeting people, interesting people. Sounded good to me, so that's what I did. And I stuck with it till the end.
I find it interesting you tried to do some, like, blue collar work, and you didn't mesh with the people. And I felt exactly the same. Like I'm a little bit too creative and forward thinking to most people that sort of work as, say a metal worker, welder, or, that sort of thing. It's very hard to connect with them. And, connecting with people at your work is very, very important to happiness, and feeling like you contribute something to not only like society in general, but society in your workplace. And I can really identify with that, because for many, many years I felt, through my military career and through other jobs I've had, that I was not really that type of person to actually fit in this environment. And I find it very interesting that then you go to university and you do it, and you use it for what you feel like is good to get out of it, which is the experiences with people and the free time to go riding, and and that sort of thing, and that's what you take from it, not anything to do with your actual education. I think that tells a lot about who you are.
I wrote my master's thesis about education, landscapes of education in the city, social stuff, as well as the built environment. So I had my share of of writing about education, and what I found was that the stuff that I like to do is more like a form of education that allowed me to grow as a person. Very broad, very general. I was interested in many fields, and my studies were they gave me the opportunity to discover different things for different social, what do you call it, gave me the opportunity to learn about society, different aspects of society. And this is what I found great. I had the time to grow as a person, to learn about society, to have enough free time to do what I wanted to do. I like sports, so I had time to ride my bike, to go rock climbing, to do whatever I wanted, and just enjoy the time, having enough input to keep my mind busy and having enough free time to do the stuff I wanted.
And I think
what else can you ask for?
Well, I mean, and then the problem is a lot of people then come out of their education where they did that exactly what you did, had a lot of free time but also did the work, and then they're expected to go do 100% work with no free time, and they wonder why they burn out and why they're miserable, because the work is actually not at all fulfilling for them and they get no free time to do so, to do anything else that they need to do or feel like they need to do. So I really enjoy hearing people's stories about the way they were able to see the world differently and say, okay, well, actually, this is not for me, and just jump ship. I think that says something a lot about people. The people that don't jump ship often have sold themselves that lie and will do for the most of the rest of their life. So, I just admire that in you. I think that's really cool, especially considering that, Germany is so kind of square in that way. I think most countries are similar, but I know the Germans are very, very square in that way. I want to talk a little bit about your work. I find, like I've mentioned before, the simplicity and beauty of some of your pieces I just thoroughly enjoy. And I just want to give you the opportunity to talk about that. Why don't we start with some of your recent work, your kitchen utensils?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty funny story. I met a guy last year, and he makes cutlery from wrenches, and he had a few pieces with him, and they stuck with me. And one day I just took a wrench and an old butter knife and like silver braced both of them together, and I posted a picture. And the company that made the wrench, they reacted to it, and I was asking, hey, is it possible that you can give me like some faulty ones or some damaged ones just to experiment, because this is what I like. I wanted to explore what I can do. And we're like, no, we don't have any faulty ones. We can't give you any faulty ones. But if you write us a list, we will give you basically what you want. And so I wrote a list. And a few days later, 2 wrenches arrived. I was like, only 2? Well, yeah, okay, 2 is better than none.
Yeah.
And the day after that, like the big box arrived with all the rest of it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and then I started making these things, and I basically sketched these ideas in 10 minutes. I just sat down, I flipped through the catalog, and I sketched some ideas, and now I'm making these things I thought about making, and it's great fun. And some of them are they are so good that it even surprises me that these lines they just fall together. It's perfect in a sense. And this is not what I had in mind. It was just rough sketches, and I was like, yeah, I can brace this to that. And I'm surprised every time that it's actually quite good.
Because I was saying before, you know, like your work seems like you can just, if you zinc coated it like in a uniform coating, you'd think it was actually designed that way from start. And that's what I see in your work. It doesn't look like two odd things stuck together like a lot of other things sometimes look like, you know. I think that purity, that simplicity, and like we've mentioned before, this perfection is quite interesting. You're a bit of a perfectionist. Would you call yourself a perfectionist?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. There's not one thing I make where I'm not going, this could be better, or this is like there's a nick somewhere. Yeah, I could have braced it better.
Yeah. Because often they say there's no such thing as perfect. Like there is no such thing. And by putting yourself in that box, you'll never be successful in some ways. But I think an interesting part about that is if you set yourself very high standards, which it sounds like you do, then your work actually stands out as being very well done and professional. And I feel like, is there like this sense of like perfection is what drives you to make something well, and like, does it do anything else for anyone else but besides yourself?
um, it's perfection has been one of the driving forces behind the stuff that I do, for sure. A lot of people consider it to be something a bad thing, because you can never reach perfection. Perfection prevents you from doing stuff because something isn't right. And that is true for me, sure. I haven't done things because the time wasn't right, the tools weren't right, the materials weren't right, etc. But on the other hand, I was always drawn to things that require perfection. I picked up welding because it requires a certain degree of perfection. You have to be very careful with the cleaning. You have to clean everything multiple times at best. Yeah, hand has to be very steady, and you can see the result. Like there is no machine-like perfection in it, and this is true for everything I make. I don't want to achieve machine-like perfection, but I want to be better every time I make something, and it drives me to learn more and to make better things.
And you mentioned a little bit about like that you thought that your perfection kind of gave back to like the community, the broader community, because you felt like maybe that your design, your simplicity was able to, you know, give people joy, or I don't know, I can't remember how you put it.
Only thing that I can remember is that some of my designs inspired people to start their own things, and this is the highest compliment everyone can ever give me, that my stuff inspired them, or that my attention to detail, maybe not perfection, but attention to detail, inspired them to do something like I did. I will never consider myself good at anything. This is a school thing, but this is also something I found out for myself. I'm a student. I'm the internal student of things. Not so much a master of anything.
I think that's what all creatives and makers and all the, you know, artists, I think we're all the same. I don't think we're masters in anything. You know, I don't feel like, anyway. I mean, there's certain people that are very good at a specific thing, but you know, I think if you are generally creating interesting things, you're trying new things all the time, and you can't be a master at something you're trying something for the first time at, right?
Yeah, there are some techniques I want to get really good at. For example, welding and brazing are some of them, and I think I'm heading in the right direction. Not that I'm good by any standard, but I think I'm going in the right direction at least.
I think you're a butt-tin better than me at doing any of that stuff. So if you saw, I'm just grinding. That's all I'm doing. I'm grinding every time I do anything, just to make it pretty.
It's sometimes I feel like I absorb for so long as I feel I have to absorb information, and when I start, I do it not better than the others, but I start with a foundation of knowledge, and I don't know, if I really like something, I have the feeling I can get into it quite quickly. I picked up welding, I don't know, 2 years ago, and I just educated myself. And what I did were one of the reasons that I work at the place where I work now, because I was a self-taught welder, and my boss was impressed by what he saw.
And so for those guys who don't know, you're working building prototype bikes, is that right?
Yeah, small production runs and prototypes mostly. Yeah, it's a frame building shop close to where I live, and I ride my bike there every morning, and then I build bikes the whole day, and then I ride my bike back. And yeah, it's a very small shop, but it's the basic stuff: a mill, a lathe, welding equipment, the frame jig.
And you guys build wheels and suspension and things like that, or?
Oh yeah, we do some full suspension bikes, but let me tell you, it's difficult. But we do all the mechanic stuff as well. So I build the wheels if we need special wheels. Otherwise, we will just order them in, just like the other parts. But most of the time, we only build the frames, have some parts to check the fit, and then we will send out the frames for heat treatment, for powder coating, or just directly to the customer if they want to take care of that themselves.
And you mentioned building your own wheels was actually like a really interesting, therapeutic, nearly like thing to do, because you have to have it so precise. It's really important to have it precise, otherwise you basically get a wonky wheel.
Yeah, it's another thing where perfection is a good thing. You will only get a good wheel if you are very fussy about all the little details and try to get them perfect. One day when I decided to convert my old road bike into a fixed bike, I had figured out what parts I needed. But one of the most difficult things for beginner wheel builders is to figure out the length of the spokes, because there's spoke lengths from, I don't know, 100 and something to like 300, depending on the size of the wheel, on what do you want to do it, if you want to cross lace them, whatever, twist them. So I went to my local bike shop and I was like, here's a hub and a rim, can you make me the wheel I need? They were like, sure. And a week later, nothing happened, and I called and I was like, yeah, what about this wheel? They were like, yeah, we haven't figured out the spokes. I was like, yeah, cool. Week later, I called again and I was like, yeah, what's going on? I wanted to ride my bike. I was excited. It was something new. I've never ridden a fixed gear bike before, so I really wanted to start building it. And they were like, yes, we haven't figured out the spokes, and there's some guy coming next week. And I was like, no. I got there, got my stuff, sat down at home and figured out what I had to do, and I built my first wheel. And from there I discovered, if a wheel gets better the more attention to detail I put into it. There's no such thing as a perfect wheel, but you can get very close, and if you work precise and take care of the details and get good quality materials, parts, you can make a great wheel. And I did that ever since. I've never bought a wheel since I made my first one.
Because I remember straight spoking my wheel on my lowrider, and I think I had three goes before I got it okay-ish. And I made my own jig and everything to try and get it. And it's I don't know how many hours I used, hours and hours and hours trying to get it right. And you just have to be so patient, and you kind of have to know what you're doing. I had no idea, as a 16-year-old, but yeah, it was a very tiresome process and took a long time. So I fully get what you mean. You have to be perfectionistic in building a wheel, and I don't think many people quite realize that, right? Not many people are building wheels.
No, it's not. But there's the discrepancy between a machine-made cheap wheel and a handmade, almost perfect wheel. It makes such a difference. It's even people who don't know about bikes will feel the difference when they ride it. Not so much when you like go to get some ice cream, but if you ride it a little bit harder, you will know the difference. And it's almost a Zen-like experience if you have figured out the process, the lacing, which parts put to where, which tools to use, how to make tension equal, what tips and tricks are there, what different types of spokes, of hubs, of rims are there. It's great. You can, and if you start at the lowest level, like I put this wheel in my frame, and I put a little zip tie at one of the tubes, just to see if it is straight and true. And this is how I made my first one. And then I got better tools, and I made more wheels, and I made a few for friends and family and other people, and I got some money, and I bought more tools. And this is just great. I learned a lot. And yeah, it just it makes me proud that I was able to figure it out myself, because no one ever told me how to do it. I just sat down, and I did it, and it worked, and I stuck with it because I liked it. It's patience and simplicity that lead you to perfection.
You're in your zen. I get
Yeah.
that. Let's talk about rally cars, because this is something I'm like super like, oh yes, I found someone that also likes rally cars. How did you get into rally? Like what sold it for you? Why is rally an interesting sport for you compared to, you know, people NASCAR and you know, Formula One and all these other, you know, motorsports? Why rally? Why is that interesting for you?
You mean NASCAR? You mean like driving around in circles all day, which is like the most boring thing I can imagine? No, it has its positive sides, and I've seen some interesting races even in NASCAR. But really, someday I was watching Eurosport late at night, and there was I don't know what rally it was, but the coverage of some rally. And I was like, yeah, this is interesting. Like cars going sideways. No one of my family is into motorsports. I've never been exposed to any form of motor racing whatsoever. But I saw this and I was like, yeah, this is like great. This is like so different to how you use a car in everyday life. I think that's it. What made it special for me, because I haven't there were only normal cars around my neighborhood. There was no Ferrari or nothing special, nothing particularly loud like Golfs and old VW Vanagons and Opels, and nothing interesting really. And then you see on TV that you can drive your car sideways, gravel going everywhere through a corner. I was in awe. And I kept following it, but only on TV. I never went to race.
Wait,
but as I grew
what?
up,
You never went to a race?
no.
Oh my God. Okay. Next time a rally of Germany is on, I will come down to Germany and you and I will go to an event, and you will never turn back in your whole entire life, because if you go to a World Rally Championship event, you will live and breathe that sport for the rest of your life. There is nothing like it ever. So it's happening. Next time the event is on, I'm in Germany with you.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Centimeters away from 200-mile-an-hour bloody rally cars, and you know we're gonna live
Oh
and
yeah,
breathe it in.
we're doing it like in the old days, like touching the car and at
Oh
full
yeah,
speed.
yeah. And
Great.
Germany is amazing too. It's a great rally. So, yeah, that needs to happen. That will happen. I have to say too, like something that a lot of people don't probably understand about rally. It's a very technical sport. There's a lot of rules. There's a lot of like crazy restrictions and regulations, and then of course there's things to do with the car, things to do with the drivers, you know, things like that. And there's never a dull moment. One time you think someone's got the whole rally in the bag, they've got minutes ahead of other drivers, and they take one little corner wrong, clip a little rock, and boom, they're out. And it's open to everyone all the time. It's just such an amazing, exciting sport to watch. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, this is what I remember. Like, oh yeah, he's in front. Oh, flat tire. He lost it, and now like someone overtook him, and it's I don't know what.
Unlike Formula One, where like basically once he's in the front, he's got you've got no chance to ever beat him, pretty much. There's
Yeah,
always strategy that has to happen to make that happen.
I've never been a big fan of Formula One. Yeah, sure, this is like these cars are, from an engineering standpoint, I guess the greatest prototypes on earth. But for me, it was always great to see road-going production vehicles in these rallies, not so, they are far from stock, obviously, but
Yeah,
yeah, but it shows what you can do with this chassis and
that's right.
the rules, of course, but make the most out of it and not like pour millions and millions into it to develop something ridiculously expensive, but make the most out of a production car, production vehicle. And the technical side is what kept me fascinated with rally. I'm not following WRC for the last years. It just was not of interest anymore, like the racing. I really do enjoy the hill climb stuff from time to time, but it's not regular. It's not on TV or anything. Like, it's not regular coverage here in German TV. But when they break the record, it's always great to see the onboard footage.
Well, now you've got Rally on Red Bull TV, which is you can watch for free anywhere. You can just watch it online.
Great.
So, basically
And
everything's stopped right now with COVID and everything, but
yeah.
The World Rally Championship is the most exciting it's ever been in a long time. There's a lot of things,
Oh, great.
a lot of drivers that are new, a lot of drivers you never heard of that are doing exceptionally well. Even the French are getting pushed out of rally. So it's good. So it's an exciting sport again, I think. And when you see, like, for example, the Toyota, it looks like a absolute weapon. You're thinking, oh yeah, how exciting can a Toyota Yaris be?
Yeah.
That's where you see a Toyota Yaris can be very, very exciting. Um, Absolute marvel to look at, and the engineering is just beyond.
Yeah, I've seen a few of the new generation of rally cars testing, and they looked spectacular. This absolutely great. And yeah, if it's on TV, great. I will get back into it. I was more into how to build these cars because one of my maker dreams is to build my own rally car at some point. Even though I have no skills in wrenching on cars whatsoever, but converting a production road car into a rally car is just, yeah, it's just the greatest thing I can imagine. I'm not really a car guy. Like, I would never go to the bakery or grocery store with my car if I don't have to. But building a race car is just the greatest thing for me.
Well, everything on a
Wow.
race car is there for a reason. There's no bells and whistles. There's no CD player. There's no air conditioning. There's a hole in the roof often for a rally car where they let air in. Like, that's the air conditioning. I mean, there's just there's so much in that car that everything has a function. Nothing at all doesn't have a function to keep that car on the road and going as fast as possible.
Yeah, they look purposeful, and they don't look overly aggressive or styled, because this is the design that the which function is only looks is like, it's ridiculous to me if it hasn't a function. And race cars have a function. And like, if you build a street car with like super wide fenders and stuff, this is, I don't know, this is just for looks. No one needs that to go to the grocery store. But if you build a race car and it actually has a purpose, it's great. And rally cars, they are not like these overpowered monsters. It's like, they have become pretty complicated. But if you start in the lower classes, it's actually quite simple stuff they use.
Yeah, and that's where I was. I mean, we had an old 1990s Toyota front-wheel drive, but 120 horsepower, and you know what? 120 horsepower, that'll put you in some scary situations. Chris and I, we like I'll never forget. We didn't mark in our notes there was like a dip on a straight bit of road, and we were like, I was in fifth gear, easily like 140, 150 kilometers an hour, and we just
Whoa.
hit this dip, and boom, the whole car like launched sideways, and we were like, I don't know how we didn't roll. Like, it was the scariest moment, like heart in mouth moment. There was trees on one side and a fence on the other side, and we were heading towards the trees, and I was, and we pulled out, it kept on going. I just kept my foot to the floor, and we got out of it. But I mean, that is something that just, it's so exciting and it's so exhilarating. Things happen all the time in rally events. I think we need to stop talking about rally because we're boring everyone. But I think maybe we will go into story time.
Story time. She stared at the gown and thought, yes, this is something my husband would wear.
Have you got a story to tell us? And
yeah, I thought about that a little, like maybe to tell a little bit more about that. I like to share things and like to give stuff to other people. There is a funny story that my parents tell me from time to time. I don't remember much of my early childhood, so I have to rely on what they tell me. I was maybe 4 years old. There was a garden party at our neighbors going on, and as every good 4-year-old, I went to check what's going on and what's happening there, because it was music and people. And yeah, they had a garden party, and I just checked it out, and they gave me a whole big bar of chocolate. They never had one for myself. Our parents gave us everything we needed, but not too much, especially sweets. So I had one whole bar for myself. And I took one bite out of it for myself, and I brought the rest of it home to my parents and my brother and my sister because I wanted to share it. And it was too much for me. And this is something, yeah, when I think about the story, like it's still, I still like to give stuff away.
I think that says a lot about you. A lot. That's really cool. Who inspires you? Let's go into Inspiration Nation.
Yeah. Inspiration Nation.
Yeah, lately, well, let's start with the bike stuff first. My colleague and boss in the shop at the first bike place I worked, Marcus, he was such a big inspiration for me. He is riding mountain bikes since the times when mountain bikes were made out of steel, had a rigid fork and canty brakes. And it was really cool to have him at the first bike place I worked, because I learned so much. And I knew that I was not like the best mechanic, but I think I overestimated a little bit what I learned at home, because if you only wrench on your own bikes, you're pretty good at wrenching on your own bikes. But if every bike is different, then yeah, it becomes a little harder. And he told me so much, and I owe him a lot. And he still inspires me because he's a very thoughtful person. We meet from time to time and speak about what we want to do. what we think the bicycle industry is doing, and where life's heading in general. And this is very refreshing, and he keeps inspiring me. And on the other hand, the lady knife makers of America, I found a few of them on Instagram, and it's ridiculous. They make such great stuff, and I am so inspired, especially by Andrea De Leon, known as the Destroyer on Instagram, and she's professional glass blower, I think, and as a side gig, she makes knives.
That's cool.
Like the greatest knives I've ever seen, and it's the design just spoke to me, and this was one of the things where I thought, well, maybe I can take this making thing further than bikes.
That's and what's her handle on Instagram again?
Destroyer.
As in dress, as in like female dress destroyer.
Yeah,
that's cool. All right, cool. I will put a link in the show notes for you guys who want to check that out. Let's go into Hack Tech.
This is Hack Attack!
I will not apologize for this bad intro. Any tips or tricks you want to share with the people?
Yeah, sure. I used regular alcohol called Spiritus in Germany for cleaning things for years. Then I discovered that there's stuff like called isopropanol, which is an alcohol as well, but cleans way better. And this is what I use all the time. I remember when, like, it's a very simple thing to have in the shop, but it makes such a great difference for me because, as a perfectionist, I just can't stand it when there's a stain of some glue somewhere. And so I just buy several liters of it at a time and clean everything with it. And this is maybe the shop tip is like, get the right stuff. And if it doesn't work, there's something else.
Yeah. But I think like getting the right cleaning stuff is very important, right? Especially if you're doing like cleaning welds, for example, like joints before you're welding. If you're not cleaning it properly, then your welding is going to be not as good as it could be. So
spend more time cleaning people. It's worth it, especially in welding.
I need to do that because I usually just slap things together. I don't care. So I'm learning all the time. If people saw my welds, they would cry. I thought, though, we're going to wrap it up. And to wrap it up, I'm going to go into a new section, which I've never done before. This is a new section I'm going to call Rapid Fire 5.
Hey, what are you looking at? Get up and dance. This is the Rapid Fire 5.
So are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What's the first thing that comes to you in your head when you say creativity is?
Freedom.
What is something people get wrong about you?
Oh, people think I'm arrogant, but I just keep my distance most of the time until I like things or I like people.
Now I understand a lot. I thought you didn't like me. What's your favorite film?
I don't have this one specific film, but I really, really like everything that Studio Ghibli made, like especially My Neighbor Totoro and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. These are anime films, but like basically they are movies, but not with real people.
No, that's still a movie. That's cool. What is on your nightstand?
A lot of books I have to read at some point. Some I bought back when when I was in London in Maker Central last year. But one I really want to read is about Wabi Sabi for Artists, it's called, and it's about the Japanese Wabi Sabi thinking, which is kind of hard to explain, but it's about how beauty is in things we don't consider beautiful.
I love that. Last question. What does happiness look like for you?
Happiness for me has always been immersing myself in an experience. It is making, but it can also be a bike ride or spending a day in the mountains with a lot of things taken care of. Like I know where my car is or where my cabin is, where I can go to, and I just can spend the day without thinking about what I have to organize in the evening or whatever. This is happiness for me, not to worry about things and completely immerse myself in the stuff I'm doing.
Which, it sounds like living in the now, not focusing on things around you, just enjoying the moment.
Something like that.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Anything you want to give our audience before we say goodbye? Any philosophies or anything you live by?
In the recent time, I thought a lot about my childhood and how the things that I like never changed. They only have a different form. And so it took years for me, and I guess it will take time for everyone to learn, but trust your gut feelings. The things you liked when you were a kid are the things, or probably the things that you like today. Maybe it's not the same form. I like to be outside. I still like to be outside, but now I'm cycling and I'm running, or just enjoying a day in the sun. I like to make things. I used to dig holes and pretend that it was my cave and work with my hands. And I still have this urge to like build my own house at some point or something. Just don't lose the things that you like. And even if you're not able to do them in the situation you are in, or I don't know, for whatever reason, keep some reminders, keep some things, whatever, paintings, books that remind you of these things, because at someday it will come back and there will be the right time for it. At least this is what I experienced many times.
I love that idea. Just keep those reminders there so you don't get lost on the way. Love it. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram. It's unbehagen_. So this is my main channel. I don't have any videos or anything like that, but this podcast is a reminder that I have to get into this video thing, because I want to do it. I wanted to do it for a long time, and I think it's the medium of the time. And over time, I've learned that there is something that is interesting to share.
There's always something. Someone will always find something interesting about you. Not everyone, and that's okay. I want to say thank you for coming on, Hannes. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit, and it's been a pleasure to share your journey on the show. I hope you guys got a little bit about perfectionism, and it doesn't have to be all a bad thing in this show. I want to thank everyone for listening. Before you go, flood Hannes's DM inbox with all your wonderful DMs. I just want to say, if you want to be one of the cool kids and join the GA Nation, you can head over to Patreon. Otherwise, you can support me just as much by printing off 10,000 Make Ideas Reality podcast promotion leaflets and put them under the windscreen wipers of all the cars you can find. Or you could create a Make Ideas Reality Red Bull soapbox racer and compete against the best in the world. If you can't tell that I have been watching Red Bull soapbox racing at all this week. If you want to go and give me some feedback, I'd love to hear your feedback. Send your DMs to me at Garage Avenger on Instagram. Please go check out Hannes at Unbehagen _ at Instagram. The links are in the show notes. If you don't follow him already. Until next time, keep pushing yourself, keep ballsing up things, keep learning, get inspired, and I'll catch you on the flip side. All right, we're done.
Yay! That was great.